Hey, Big Blue Banter listener, would you like an extra $500? That's a lot of cash. Go to bluewirepods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and, in turn, help this show. That's bluewirepods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. bluewirepods.com/survey. The link is also in the show notes of this episode.
Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. I do apologize for a little bit of a hoarse voice. Had a nice time out in the town last night, Nicky, celebrating my brother Matt. I'm not my brother, my friend Matt's birthday. Hoboken night out. I haven't done that in a while. A lot of drinking, a lot of yelling. I feel like at the loud bars, I'm like, my voice is just shot. Shout out to Rutgers football for a big win. Very excited for them. A lot of my friends are big Rutgers fans. I'll say this, Nick. Our Super Bowl this year, and by our, I mean this pathetic program that is the Wisconsin Badgers, we've fallen to pathetic depths, is going to be Rutgers in 2 weeks. I'm going to go to the game. We're tailgating. We need to win this game. I told my brother years ago we will never lose to Rutgers in football, and he has not lived that. He will not let me live that down. But we're here to talk about the Giants defense tonight.
I hope Rutgers beats you guys, by the way.
What'd you say?
I hope Rutgers wins that game.
I know you hope Rutgers wins that game,
yeah,
and I respect that. But I root for Rutgers, by the way, when I'm not rooting for Wisconsin because of New Jersey. So anyway, we're here to talk about the Giants defense. Look, as you look at the grand scheme of things, I think it's clear for anyone who watched the tape of this game, both sides of the ball, the defense did more than enough for the Giants to win this football game. There were key stops on third downs. There was one big play they gave up to CeeDee Lamb, and that's against Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, a great quarterback wide receiver combo. If you can force a team like that has that quarterback receiver combo to one massive play in a game, and outside of that, they're basically just running slants, flats, and then getting stopped in the red zone, you should be able to win that football game. The Giants were not able to because they didn't score any touchdowns on offense. So to me, this is one of the stupidest losses I've watched in the Dable era, Nick, because this was such a winnable game, and all they had to do was convert one of four big plays they had to themselves, and on the offense side of the ball, they converted zero, and they lost. So let's talk about what happened on defense and why the tape showed that the Giants were not as bad on defense as people might have thought or there might have been giving them credit for.
The DNA of the Shane Bowen defense, and he could deviate from this like we saw in Cleveland, is to force these quick passes, and then he plays top down rallies and tackles. It's a different defensive structure from Patrick Graham, but it's similar from a philosophical standpoint. We're going to play the top down. We're not going to necessarily mug the line of scrimmage and press you like we saw a lot with Wink Martindale. With that said, if you want to have a successful approach, you're trying to get into 3rd and 4+ situations, because you're going to surrender these quick little passes to CeeDee Lamb, these quick 2-yard average depth of target type of passes. It's contingent on the defender to come downhill and make that tackle and force a 2nd and 8, and then maybe a 3rd and 6. And that's when Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeaux can pin their ears back. I did not think the Giants did a terrible job defensively stopping Dallas from getting to those 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 6 situations, right? The Giants put themselves in those positions. Now, Dallas and Dak Prescott's a surgical type of quarterback, because the Cowboys would scheme up a play. Dak Prescott would read the one defender. That would be his primary read. He didn't like it. He knew exactly where that next concept was and knew exactly how the Giants defenders, if they were in zone coverage, were going to react. And if it wasn't zone coverage, if it was man coverage, he knew where the pick was going to be to free up CeeDee Lamb on a simple concept like a slant flat or something, right? Which the Giants kind of got carved up against the slant flat and those simple concepts overall defensively. Look, they forced like 3rd and 3s. Now, the Giants' pass rush wasn't getting home, and Dak Prescott was able to convert on some of those 3rd and 3 situations. But when they got in the red zone and when they got into the Giants side of the field, the Giants defense stepped up and they were forcing these field goals. 1 field goal, 2 field goal, 3 field goal. And that's exactly what you want. Like, Shane Bowen was known as the defensive coordinator in Tennessee who had one of the best red zone defenses. The Giants weren't even necessarily letting Dallas get into the red zone. They weren't even letting them get in the red zone. They were playing sound and cohesive defense from their own 20 to their 50-yard line. And that was forcing Brandon Aubrey to kick 50+ yard field goals, 45+ yard field goals. So defensively, I look at this and I'm like, yeah, they're going to give up the slant flat. They're going to give up these quick little cushions. Dak Prescott's way too surgical of a quarterback to tear apart the Giants when they are in soft leverage. But as long as they can solidify, that is bend, don't break. And that is the that is the bend don't break that I don't mind. Like week 2 bend don't break, I didn't like that bend don't break because you let him get all the way into the red zone and then you decided to solidify. Now you were putting Brendan Aubrey in a position where he had to make these kicks. Brendan Aubrey is one of the best kickers in the league, but he still missed a kick and gave the Giants offense another chance to win the damn football game, Dan. Giants offense had another chance to win this football game. And as we said in yesterday's podcast, we just kind of knew inside that it wasn't going to happen. Like the Giants weren't going to drive down the field and score, but the Giants could have scored on one of those possessions where they decided to kick field goals. The Giants offense could have done anything on the explosive play opportunities that Malik Neighbors and Darius Slayton and some of the other players had afforded the overall Giants offense. The Giants probably win this football game. And you could say that about a lot of things, but dude, this again, man, this is one of those disappointing losses because once again, it seemed like the Giants did so many things correctly, but they still find a way to freaking shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best. The summation of it from watching it on tape is simple. Like, yes, we want, and we'll get to it when I get to my pass rush grade, which is going to be higher than people are going to expect because I'm judging them on the pass rush opportunities that they had. And they didn't have a lot. And maybe you could say the DNA of Shane Bowen's defense is we got to find a way to get them into these 3rd and long situations. I don't think we're going to get a lot this year if teams play the Giants the way the Cowboys did, because the Cowboys did what the Giants did on offense. They used the pass game as an extension of the run game. That's exactly what they did. And then they used that pass game to set up those runs on 2nd down situations that went for 5, 6, 8 yards at a time. My one gripe with this defense, outside of the one Deonte Banks Lamb play, basically, which is crazy, by the way, because Dallas did dial up deep concepts and Giants were in coverage on all those. And Dak had to go through his progressions, check down, and get to Jake Ferguson. I watched it over and over again, or get down to another throw in space underneath. And that's fine. They worked for the Cowboys, but they got limited to field goals. But point being, like, you're not going to get a lot of pass rush situations this year, I think, Nick, because the Giants play a certain style of defense that allows offenses to kind of. How much slant flat did we watch? I watched a shit ton of slant flat in this game from Dallas, and Dak made it work. But in the end, the Giants had multiple pass rush opportunities, at least 2 that I can remember. The 3rd and 7 in the red zone, they stopped them. Kayvon Thibodeaux late in the game got around the edge, forced Dak. The coverage was great downfield. They had a design for, I think it was like a sail route or something up the seam for Lamb, I believe, and it was taken away by the safety. And Dak had nowhere to go with the football, checked it down underneath for an incompletion. Earlier in the game, Dallas was on their way to scoring another 3 points at minimum, Nick, before the half. Kayvon Thibodeaux gets the sack, takes that 3 points off the board. That's the defense, the Giants taking points off the board right there. That's an example of it. And so I just looked at this game and I was like, I don't know. In the pass rush opportunities they did have, those few rare 3rd and longs they got them into, they did a pretty good job, I thought. It just was a game where Dak was using the pass game as an extension of the run game, running an insane amount of slant flat, but also getting stopped a lot. Like the Cowboys punted multiple times. They had to actually get off the field, something the Giants offense didn't do. In a lot of ways, I felt like the Giants offense was more efficient than the Cowboys offense in this game, though obviously they didn't score any touchdowns while the Cowboys had 2 touchdowns. So that was basically what decided the game.
And another big reason why I think the Cowboys offense did struggle is the penalties, man. Like they had a total of 11
did have
penalties
killing them. Yeah.
There was a lot of holding that helped the Giants defense as well. Something to, I think, take into account as we move forward, evaluating Shane Bowen's defense, because Shane Bowen's defense, it hasn't been perfect. Like the off leverage, it allows these quick passing concepts to thrive. It's like you've said, it's an extension of the run game, the curl flat, all that we saw, the slant flat. Yeah. It seemed like there were a bunch of concepts that Dallas would dial up where there would be a deep concept to the left side of the field and then something maybe quick to the right. And then based on the pre-snap judgment of Dak Prescott, he would either attack the left or he would attack the right. And then there's the defense of 3-by-1 sets by the New York Giants, something that really bothered me against Washington. In this game, it wasn't as prevalent. Dallas had 11 3-by-1 plays where they passed the football. Dak was 8 of 11 on those passes for 59 yards. And a lot of it was just everything was quick into soft leverage, because if you aligned CeeDee Lamb as that backside one, which the Dallas didn't do all the time. They had him as the 3. They aligned him in a bunch of different spots. The Giants are probably going to shade a safety in that direction, have attention in that direction, and it makes the equation of math more equal towards that 3 receiver side. Now there might be like a 3.5, like a half person advantage if a linebacker is shaded towards that side. But either way, at the depth that the Giants are playing at, these teams are just throwing into the soft leverage. and they're picking up 4, 5, 6 yards. And this is what Shane Bowen's defense is. I'm not saying that it's something schematically wrong that needs to be fixed. You need to press up. I'm not saying any of those things. It's what the defense is affording the offense, and the offense is like, I could take that. That's free yardage for me. And let me get myself into a better second in whatever situation, or third in whatever situation. So, but the 3-by-1 sets, I think this comes up even more when the Giants are in those 3-by-1 sets. And it really, again, just stresses those linebackers, man. Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke, when they have to go up against a CeeDee Lamb, who is the number 3, if it catches the Giants into a zone coverage. And the Giants hardly blitzed in this game either, Dan. Like, they blitzed what, 57% of the time against Cleveland. That was the right game plan. Here, they didn't blitz that much, and I feel like that was the right game plan, because every time they did, Dak Prescott just freaking had an answer for it. You wanted to send a nickel blitz with Nick McLoud coming in? Sweet. We're going to send our 5'5" running back Deuce Vaughn to pick him up, and we're going to find CeeDee Lamb on a 55-yard touchdown.
Right.
You want to send Micah McFadden through the B gap? All right, we're going to hit CeeDee Lamb on a deep curl against, I think it was like Cordell Flott, or whoever the hell it was, right behind him.
Yep.
And then there was a couple other blitzes where on that Isaiah Simmons blitz on 3rd and 5, quickly, he just saw Isaiah Simmons coming, just threw right where Isaiah Simmons was hot to Ferguson, picked up 4 yards, set up a 4th and 1 situation. There were a lot of plays like that. So when you blitz a quarterback who's as smart as Dak Prescott, you're going to probably pay unless you throw a curveball at him, especially if you are playing from such depth. So it is what it is, man. I don't want the Giants to get beat deep. Like, they haven't really been beat deep all that much, other than the CeeDee Lamb 55-yard touchdown. Banks was in position. That was a good throw by Dak Prescott. It was a better play by CeeDee Lamb. But the Giants, that's one of the primary things. They don't want to get beat deep. And that could also be, Dan, because they don't have a lot of talent at the corner position. So if they are closer to the line of scrimmage, they do press up a little bit more, it could lead to more plays behind the Giants. And that's something I'm sure Shane Bowen wants to prevent.
And we'll see a lot of that. Like, I think there's no better example than on the 55-yard Lamb touchdown of what you just broke down, which is Dak Prescott. You're essentially just wasting a player. You're playing 10 against 11 with that nickel blitz, because Prescott sees it coming from the strong side, doesn't affect him at all. Actually, he's so smooth with it, dude, that like he's able to recognize it and then get himself into such a good grounded position to drive that throw to Lamb that it's almost like you wasted a defender on that play. And we saw that multiple times whenever they tried to blitz Dak Prescott. He recognizes it. He moves fast and he gets off. And it's just how he is. Like, part of what makes him a good quarterback is not just the ability to process the information, in my opinion, Nick. It's how in sync his feet and upper body are when it comes to, he processes the information. He moves off of that read where he sees it's not going to be there, moves off of it, and he's already into his throwing motion. I saw that like 4 times throughout this game where he comes off looking left or right. And by the time he's flipping his hips and going back the other way, the ball he's already in his throwing motion, ready to get the ball out. And that little 1 second or 1.5 seconds that he saves makes all the difference on a lot of these plays versus a lot of quarterbacks who can recognize it. I figured it out. Then they move back to the other side and they're nowhere near ready to throw the football. They haven't even started their throwing motion. They're resetting themselves. Then they're getting into their throwing motion. All that time they just wasted, the play is dead by that point. But with Dak, he's able to just maximize time so well, where I just don't think it made sense to blitz him at all.
It's all those hip workouts that he does.
Maybe it is. Game, he's fucking fluid. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, he's very fluid. Blitzing him is always a nightmare for the New York Giants, which is unfortunate. And another part about that sucks is like, he's so crisp when he's going like, okay, that's not there. Let me find where the other thing is. I already know where it is before my eyes get there. So I'm already starting to throw the football, and that's going to prevent the Giants from having that extra inch to close with and destroy the enemy, destroy the enemy by firing.
That's it. You just said it right there. He already knows where it's going to be before his eyes go there. That's the special part right there, because a lot of quarterbacks need to get their eyes there. Then they know where it's going to be. And that time, that's football right there. You don't have that little amount of time makes all the difference somehow.
It makes a massive difference. But what makes it even more frustrating is he can do that with the quick game and have answers if it's not there. But then there were the plays where everything broke down. The Giants covered everything up, and he's stepping up into the pocket. He's avoiding Kayvon Thibodeaux, who ended up crashing into the pocket. And then he just like flips the ball to Jake Ferguson as Dexter Lawrence eats him. And it's just like,
finds that fullback,
or finds the fullback.
That was
That's the third.
crazy.
We're going to go over that play here in a little bit.
Yeah.
Those were 2 huge plays in the game. There were 2 3rd and 3 conversions on the Dallas Cowboys' first touchdown drive. So the second drive of the game. Giants forced a 3 and out on that first drive. We're like, oh, yeah, let we go. You had Deontay Banks feeling himself. He jammed CeeDee Lamb at the line of scrimmage, hit him in the face, could have been hands to the face, wasn't called. It was great. Deontay, every time he was tasked to press CeeDee Lamb, he had a chip on his shoulder and he went up there and he wanted to press him until there was that 55-yard touchdown where CeeDee Lamb is way too good of a wide receiver to consistently do that against. CeeDee Lamb beat him off the line of scrimmage wide, and Banks he couldn't even really stay in the hip pocket. He was still like, if it was a bad throw, he might have been able to knock it away, but Lamb just was able to run underneath it, and Tyler Nubin just took a terrible angle on that play.
Yeah,
terrible
unfortunately. And it was a good drive throw by Dak. Like, he put it in an interesting spot. Like, a lot of quarterbacks you might think like, oh, I'm going to put that outside shoulder and over that. Dak actually didn't throw it outside shoulder. He like understood the leverage and how bad kind of Banks was beat by Lamb, and understood that Lamb already had stacked him, had the step. So I could actually throw that a little more inside and let him catch that on a line and then see what he can do with that post catch, which is what he did, which is cut it back up in field. Because he knows, I don't know if Dak knows this in real time, Nick. It'd be crazy if he's able to process all this info, but he sees the safety taking that angle down, which is a bad angle. So actually, it's better to not throw outside shoulder there in that instance. You want to kind of put it where he did, because it allows the receiver to then cut that up inside, like CD did.
That would be advanced. I
doubt he did. That's crazy.
I think it's more he checked the safety. He saw the safety was, I think, more towards the opposite hash, and he knew he had the one-on-one matchup. And you're going to take a one-on-one matchup, CeeDee Lamb against Deontay Banks all day. And again, I think we had a couple people, not a lot, but we had a couple people be like, why are you guys so hard on Deontay Banks after the Cleveland game? I didn't think we were hard on Deontay Banks. Like, I still like Deontay Banks a lot, but he's not playing to the level that Giant fans want him to play to, or they believe that I feel like a lot of Giant fans, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I feel like a lot of people think Deontay Banks is just like true number one. They don't think he's like Patrick Surtain or Sauce Gardner, but like, he's a true number one. And I think he's a number one cornerback, but he's on the lower echelon of number one cornerbacks right now. He hasn't proven that he is that he is this very good starter. I think he's a solid football player with a lot of potential, but we haven't seen that very good shutdown cornerback quite yet. And early this season, he's been exposed a little bit. I mean, Amari Cooper torched him. But the one thing I will say this, I shouldn't say torched, because he's in good coverage in a lot of these. It's more of a catch point issue.
Yep.
It's more of a catch point issue.
The slant that he got hit on earlier in the game before the Lamb play, like, he's right on that play. I think it was the Lamb, that slant. He's right there, but at the catch point, he doesn't make plays. And we said this in his Maryland tape. Like, we saw that he wasn't great. I felt like more so it was like he wasn't good at getting his head around. But like, this is more of just like an issue of just figuring out a way to get that football out of the receiver's hands. Maybe play the football more on some of these passes. Like, I know a lot of good corners do that. They play the football, not the player. I don't know what it is. It's obviously something that they're working on. But a few notes before we get into some play breakdowns, Nick, that I have that I just wanted to run by you and see what you thought. Man, this team asks a lot from McLoud, and I guess it'll be whoever plays that role moving forward, hopefully Drew Phillips, in run support. So one thing that's clearly evident from watching this tape is how active 44 and 41 were in this game. So, Nick, why don't you just break down for us the role that Nick McLoud played in this game?
I wouldn't say they put a ton on his play. Like, a lot of the food goes towards the linebackers. So the one play that really sticks out is the first run. Is a 6-yard run by Rico Dowdle. I wish I had it cut up. I don't think I do. If you do, let me know, Dan.
No, not that one.
That was like a halfback stretch run where the defense got washed to the play side, including the linebackers. They scraped and they fit, and they were following where the blockers were going. But that led to this gigantic hole that Dowdle recognized and Dowdle hit. It was a cutback hole. And it was Nick McLoud who was towards the non-play side, who just came in pursuit and filled very quickly. But it was still a 6-yard game. But he's coming from outside of the hash. He's coming from out there. He's not quite at the numbers, right? He's the apex defender, meaning he's the overhang defender. But he's flying in there and he's making the stick. The Giants, they were in nickel personnel a lot in this game because Dallas used 11 personnel, I think like 70% of the snaps, something like that. They were in 11 personnel a lot. So the Giants matched with nickel, and Dallas is not scared to run the football out of 11 personnel. I just think he was in position often. And on that same drive, the second run, it was a loss of 1 for Rico Dowdle. McLoud does a great job being the force, the contained defender. But that play is really made by Bobby Okereke, because Okereke hits, I think it was a C gap, presents his numbers right to Rico Dowdle to the strong side. And Dowdle has to bounce it outside. And McLoud just puts himself into position so well and keeps that outside arm free that he runs right into Nick McLoud, Rico Dowdle, that is, and it ends up being a loss of 1. And it looks like a great play from Nick McLoud. It is a great play from Nick McLoud, but it was more team defense there that really stifled that rushing play, because if it wasn't for Okereke filling and fitting, then that run never goes to McLeod. McLeod is irrelevant on that play. Now he's containing and he's boxing everything to the inside to those other pursuing defenders. So he's keeping the continuity of the defense intact, which is very valuable. But Okereke forced him out, which gave the tackle for a loss to McLeod and Cordell Flott, who is the secondary force defender. Either way, he executed the role well. And another reason why McLeod was very active, and again, he's a good football player and he can operate well in the box, but Dallas used a lot of condensed splits. So there was a lot of tight end stacks with Brendan Cooks, like really tight to the line of scrimmage, and that brings Nick McLeod right up to the box. And then they would try to run the football out of that. There was a play, I think midway through the first quarter, where they get handed the football to Dowdle, and you just see McLeod just the C's part, and he just fills, and hits Dowdle, and it was maybe like a 1 yard gain.
What's up, everybody? It's Jerry Ferrara. I've got a new podcast called Throwbacks with Heisman Trophy winner Matt Leinart, where we will be talking about all things sports, all things pop culture, and all things about our lives. From football locker rooms to Hollywood green rooms, we've got you covered. We're your weekly destination for the games you want to hear about and the stories you won't forget. Listen to Throwbacks on Apple Podcasts or Spotify with new episodes every Thursday.
What's up, Big Blue Banter listeners? I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out, it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. And all of Mint Mobile's plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/BBB. That's mintmobile.com/BBB. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/BBB. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. All right, guys, it's the best time of year. Football is back. We're talking NFL Sundays, college football Saturdays, and that glorious grind of fantasy football lineups. This is where your inner GM comes alive, setting the perfect fantasy roster, screaming at your television, and making last-minute waiver moves that either make you a hero or the guy everyone ridicules in the group chat. But listen, while you're over here making sure your fantasy team is dialed in, don't let your personal grooming become the guy that gets left on the bench. Let's be honest, nobody wants to fumble their grooming routine. That's where Manscaped's Performance Package 5.0 Ultra comes in, acting as your all-in-one grooming playbook. From keeping things sharp down below with the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra to taking care of those rogue nose and ear hairs with the Weed Whacker 2.0, this is the lineup that'll keep you looking and feeling like a champ, on and off the field. Join the over 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for kickoff by heading over to manscaped.com. Use the code BIGBLUE for 20% off plus free shipping. Trust me, you'll be drafting the real MVP of the grooming season. This is an excellent deal for you and your little friends down there. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code BIGBLUE at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code BIGBLUE at manscaped.com. Stay on top of your grooming game and be ready for anything the season throws.
One more thing I wanted to run by you, excuse me, before we get into the play breakdowns. Kayvon Thibodeaux, there was a stat earlier this year, Nick, that his get-off time had improved from last year to this year. It's something that I've noticed on tape, specifically in this game against the Cowboys. I thought he did a really good job getting off the line of scrimmage with burst. really these inside play moves that he had against Tyler Guyton in this game created a lot of pressure in key spots. I talked about the sack that really took 3 points off the board at minimum. This was one of the better Kayvon Thibodeaux games if you watch it on tape. What were your thoughts on Thibodeaux, where we're at with him moving forward?
Yeah, for the YouTube audience, I'll play a bunch of Kayvon Thibodeaux highlights. Kayvon Thibodeaux, dude, so it's that get off. I want to just give him his praise for, because I do think he has that quick first step. I do, however, feel like it takes him a little bit to win around the edge. His first step is very quick, whereas his second, third, and fourth step, it's adequate. Like, it's not terrible, but it's really not that quick, because he, like, even on this play, look, he wins and he affects this play, and this is a good play by Kayvon, but his hands is what maximizes this play for him. Like, gets that rip move, little swat, break the wrist, and now his hips are oriented in the pocket. But then there's just like,
that's wasted movement, right?
That to me, it's because he doesn't have that much lower body flexibility or much natural bend like Azeez Ojulari and Brian Burns does. So it's a little bit clunky and not as quick as you probably want it to be, especially since he doesn't do a lot of other things as well as I think a lot of people want him to perform as a former fifth overall pick. But that get off did help him out in this game, and he was able to also win inside several times and make plays. So yeah, overall, I think Kayvon Thibodeaux is probably the best Giants defender. I don't feel good saying that.
I felt the same way about this game. Yeah, I know. We'll get into that a little later, but
we'll get into that later. I mean,
that's a great point by you, though. I think on that rep where he did affect it, because, you know, like you could see Dak throwing the ball earlier than he wanted to, but it's a great example of what he's lacking too, because he wins around the edge with his hands, and then there's that wasted movement up the arc, like where you can see him kind of going in a circle almost, instead of just the good guys just bend that edge and kind of run down the line. Like they can move down that, like that line you see right there. What is that? The 15-yard line, whatever it is. They can like get their body down that line instead of kind of like going up that arc.
Yes. And also, so I want to also praise Kayvon. I think Kayvon does a great job once he makes contact with his hands, bringing that inside foot, if you're watching on YouTube, and then stepping outside of his frame. So it sets up the inside dipping shoulder and gets your hips oriented to your target, which is Dak Prescott. And I think those steps right there, that's a good job by Kayvon. But it's the, once you put yourself into that position, how quick can you turn that corner, accelerate, and finish the play? And I think it's just not quick enough for Kayvon Thibodeaux relative to other pass rushers in the league.
To the elite guys where he was drafted to be, which is fair, honestly, to hold him to that standard, I think is very fair.
Yeah, and the bending through contact isn't amazing. On this play, he draws a hold, so I'm not holding this play against him. If you're watching on YouTube, he did draw like 2 holds in this game. But overall, look, man, I don't know how to evaluate Kayvon Thibodeaux, because I think of him, and I think a lot of Giant fans feel this way. It's you were the 5th overall pick. We still want more from you, but I just don't know if he's ever going to live up to the expectations that we set for him because of how lauded he was coming out of Oregon and because of the 5th overall pick.
That's all fair, and that's something that he'll be held to that standard his whole career, and that's fair to me, to be held to that standard when you're that kind of blue chip, prospect. All right, let's get into some film breakdown now.
Yeah, Dan. So this is disappointing. First 3rd and 3 on the Dallas Cowboys' first touchdown drive. The Giants show blitz. They bail out a blitz into a cover 2. And Kayvon Thibodeaux crashes right into the pocket, gets Dak Prescott off of his spot. Dak takes a huge hit from Brian Burns as he releases the football. But the damn fullback, Hunter Lupke, makes the catch in tight coverage too for a conversion. And this ball is at like what, the Cowboys 45-yard. This would have been a punt if the Giants could have held him here on 3rd and 3 this early in the game, and it resulted in 7 points for Dallas. So very disappointing. That,
I think, to me, Flott takes a really bad angle on this play, and that's one of the big reasons why this is a completion here. And I guess you can think like maybe he's trying to take a step toward the quarterback, but he doesn't need to be in support of the scrambling quarterback here. He needs to continue his assignment and take this fullback out of the play, but he takes a step toward the line of scrimmage that you can see as we roll it back, and really defines this play. I mean, you're getting beat by a fullback here in coverage there. It's just not a good look.
No, it's not a good look at all. And you can see him step down. I think he believed Dak was going to rush. He didn't see Burns kind of coming off of his block. Everything's happening so fast. So he had to step up and make the tackle on Dak Prescott in space, but he loses the spatial relationship to Hunter Lupke, to a fullback who ends up catching this throw that's a little bit to the outside, giving Flott an opportunity to knock it away, but Flott is just not in position to do so. And look, Cordell Flott had a couple good reps in this game, specifically on the vertical plane, meaning deep curls, deep comebacks. He was in off leverage. The defenders were eating into his cushion. One of them, I think he was in press bail. So, or he didn't jam, but he was aligned in a press alignment and then bailed at the snap. And then he was able to click and close and get through the catch point and force incomplete passes. So that was a positive development for Cordell Flott. But overall, Cordell Flott is not a football player you want out there starting for you. And
I think you said it best, Nick, because I have a lot of reps that I wrote down in my notes where just bad reps from Flott, either taking poor angles like this one or just more importantly, really bad in run support. But you're right, though. If you're facing like in this game plan against what we just broke down at the beginning of the show, Dallas was running so much slant flat and all this quick game. You don't want Flott on the field in that kind of game plan, but he is still pretty good on the vertical concepts, which is kind of what flashed at LSU, which is why it was like, this could be a nice developmental pick because of that click and close and because of that ability when he's off and when he's playing against a vertical throwing team. But in today's NFL, like those teams are so few and far in between. And this specific system feels like it's designed to like allow teams to focus on short, quick game, slant flat, stuff like that. So you need someone who's better around that. Like a Drew Phillips is perfect for this kind of system, I think. Flott is not really a fit for this system at all, almost in my mind.
I just don't think Flott is
maybe just not a football
player. Yeah. No, well, I think he's a depth piece, a developmental piece. He can become something. He's still like 22 years old. He's a young guy. Right. But I just don't think you want this guy starting on any defense, no matter what the system is at this point. And on this play, man, you could see like he understands at this point where Dak Prescott's throwing the football. He tries to dive with that upfield hand, the one that's closer to Hunter Lipke, to knock it away. He understands, oh, I'm not reaching it with that. So he switches to the hand that's closer to the line of scrimmage. And either way, he lost the space that he needs to maintain against the fullback here on a very crucial 3rd and 3. Another thing about Flott, and I'm not trying to just bash this guy, but he's missed like 28% of his tackles so far this season. Like, that's really bad, right? You missed 28% of your tackles. It's early in the season though, but I don't even think that takes into account all the tackles that he's missed by not being in position in support. When he is that contain or that force defender, where he's that guy, or even if it's a secondary force, where it's like, hey, you're that insurance policy, you're that contingency plan. You need to come up and make this tackle, but he gets sucked way too far inside, and then nobody is on the edge whatsoever. We've seen that happen in 2 consecutive games now. So it's like, if you're not adding that as an element, I get that you're not the biggest, most physical player because you're like 175 pounds. I understand that, but at least be in position to be a speed bump for the running back. We need you to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, so this was a disappointing one. And then later on the drive, there's another 3rd and 3 where Brandon Cooks, this is closer to the red zone, he ends up converting, and this is in cover 1. This is against Flott. A very good release by Mike McCarthy, by the Dallas Cowboys. Well designed. You could see at the bottom of your screen, this is a boundary side stack where Brandon Cooks is going to be the number 1 receiver on the outside, but off the line of scrimmage. Jake Ferguson is going to stem outward, creating the pick. Cordell Flott sits to the outside because that's where Brandon Cooks follows Jake Ferguson, but that just creates that natural pick, baby. And this is a completely legal route. This is just smart football, especially against man coverage. And Brandon Cooks breaks over the middle field. I actually kind of want to say good job by Flott putting himself into a relatively close position to knock this football away. But the throw is just too elite from Dak Prescott. It hits Brandon Cooks on the upfield shoulder, and Tyler Nubin makes a touchdown saving tackle.
Yep. And you can see on this play just how efficient Dallas was with these kind of concepts.
You're like, look, Flott almost gets his hand on that after getting picked. So, like, that's one thing I know he's beat on this play. It's a negative play for Cordell Flott, but at least he puts himself into position to almost knock this away. If Dak Prescott was a little bit more inaccurate, this would have been an incomplete pass.
Sure.
Another 3rd and 3 conversion, though, and that sets up this 2nd and 15 screen touchdown to Rico Dowdle after a penalty suffered by.
This is the one I wanted to ask you about, Nick. So before we run through what happens on this play, roll it back a little bit. What confused me most about this play was Bobby Okereke on this play, because you see the offensive lineman climbing here, and then he takes that false step to the right and starts moving back right here. You guys can see it on the middle of your screen towards the left. That should be a signal to me. That should signal to Bobby Okereke, this play is going to the left. It's likely a screen. Why is there an offensive line climbing? Why would he ever be moving left if the play is designed to go right? But you can see Okereke almost fooled by this to the point where he sees that, but then goes back outside with the receiver coming across. At that point, if I'm Okereke, I want to follow that lineman toward the play and help make a play and run in screen support here. And I'm just kind of confused why he goes that way. So maybe you have an idea of that, or maybe it's just something where he just thought that was an eligible receiver.
I don't know if he thought it was an eligible receiver, or even if he saw it, like maybe because he does like make some sort of movement at Micah McFadden, but that could have been acknowledgement that he's going to assume the under route from Keontae Turpin, who is to the screen side. So this under route crosses in, Micah McFadden steps with him, and then there's some sort of communication between McFadden and Okereke, and there is a lineman who is visibly about to run a screen. You're correct. Right. Doesn't seem like Okereke processes that or knows. I'm not sure if he saw the running back aligned towards his side, which was not the screen side, and he didn't see that as big of a threat as Keontae Turpin coming across the field, and understanding that you have to guard this really quick slot receiver who's crossing your face is a big responsibility for a middle linebacker to handle. So he just got glued on Turpin. And look, that's a great, if this was a pass and wasn't a screen, he's in good coverage on Keontae Turpin. If this was going to be a drag route, he's on the upfield, he's cutting off the angle, he's putting himself in a position to eliminate that threat. But it was all a ruse because this is a screen to the boundary side, and now you have 3 blockers and only 3 Giants towards that side. There's really nobody there. So Okereke just didn't recognize
drag route with. Oh, I'm sorry, Nick.
No, I was just gonna say Okereke didn't recognize the screen, and I think it was as simple as that.
And I think you don't see a lot of drag routes with offensive linemen climbing to the other side of the field. So it's like that should have been the indicator to Okereke. Let's get out there and let's make a play on this ball. Let's use my football instincts. And he's fine. He's one of our best players on defense. It just was a weird play, and just seemed like a lot of times in these spots that Okereke, to me, did not have one of his better games. I thought this was one of his worst games that I've seen from him on tape. A little bit out of sync at times.
Yeah, see, he makes that hand gesture to Micah McFadden, points, and like that's usually like, hey, you got that guy. And I'm wondering if he's pointing because the running back is going in that direction. It could be that. So he's switching assignments with Micah McFadden in a match type of system where he's passing, hey, you got Rico Dowdle. He's not my responsibility, even though we're in zone right now. He's going on that direction. So if he runs to the flat, that's you. I'm going to take this number one as in Turpin, not number 1 wide receiver, and eliminate him. But then you see how Dallas has the numbers advantage on this side, or at least they're equalized, and Dowdle makes Micah McFadden miss. The flags come in because they thought it was ineligible man downfield. I don't think it was at the time of the throw. I think that player right there is that Cooper Beebe does a really good job walking that line and staying within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage. But that's a hold. More than likely on Micah McFadden. That's a hold. More than likely on Cordell Flott. And before all of that, I think you can catch it here. There's a hold right here on Kayvon Thibodeaux. So you're missing 3. That's a hold. Like you can see Kayvon's trying to separate. That's a hold on Kayvon. That's a hold on Micah. That's a hold on Cordell Flott. And you can even say that this might have been a clip on Tyler Nubin. So it's the refs dropped the ball on that, but that's not the reason the Giants lost.
No, but it was a 2nd and 15. And if you call the hold there, it's probably going to be a field goal for the Cowboys.
Yeah. And then maybe the Giants could have kicked their way to victory. It's so silly. Here's a 3rd and 5 blitz in the second quarter. And this is just Dak Prescott understanding. This is nothing even too complex, but look at the coverage the Giants run, right? The Giants are going to rotate. It looks like they're in maybe a cover 1 here. Looks like man coverage. Middle of the field closed, deep defender pre-snap is Tyler Nubin. They're going to blitz Isaiah Simmons through an open B gap. Don't mind that. But the defender who is tasked to take Jake Ferguson is the middle of the field closed pre-snap defender who is 15, 16 yards away from Jake Ferguson. Tyler Nubin's got to run all the way down all that space from the hash where he's aligned to the boundary, dude. Like that's a lot of freaking space. That's a tough assignment. And Dak quickly processes it and gets the football to Jake Ferguson.
He executes it pretty well, Nubin.
He does. And that's like the point I wanted to bring up. And I think Nubin hasn't, I don't want to say he's played well. He's made mistakes throughout these first 4 games, but I'm very encouraged by what I have seen. This is a tough position for a rookie to step in and play, especially when he missed most of training camp. But he flies down here and he forces a 4th and 1 because he makes this tackle in space against Jake Ferguson.
Yep, excellent play right there.
Just Dak understanding where to go with the football.
You can't blitz Dak. It's almost a waste of a defender every time. Like what does Simmons accomplish on this play? Nothing really.
He speeds it up, and look, Dak, you can see he looks at Tyler Nubin and the other safety, and he sees that rotation.
Right.
And I think that confirms that there was a blitz to him. I don't even know if he knows there's a blitz at this point where I'm paused, where he's just looking at the safeties. He hits that back foot. Now he sees the blitz and he understands, okay, I have all that space, I have all that time. Like that is a very quick, that's all happening very fast, but he's able to just do that. A lot of quarterbacks, a lot of high-end
basically made his career off of this, right? Because he doesn't have the greatest physical skill set. He's a big player. I'll give him that. He doesn't have elite arm talent by any means, in my opinion. It's fine. It's good arm talent. It's not elite. I wouldn't call it elite by any means. And he's not fast. He can't really create that much out of structure. Was good in this game doing it, but like he's not really that fast. So really, he's won with his mind his whole career.
Yeah. No, I think he's one of the smarter quarterbacks with those decisions, with how quick he gets the football out and how he can go through his progressions and find answers based on what the defense is doing.
He finds answers, but think about it like that, Nick. We'll do one more quick thing on this, but like he finds answers with his mind, like we've discussed, and his ball placement is good too. But he finds answers with his mind, and he's made a career of just racking up 4,000, 35, 40 TDs every year. The production is there every single year for him. Obviously, he's fallen short in the playoffs, but that just shows you how important it is that these little things, like can a quarterback move off that first read and then he's already in his throwing motion before his eyes get there to get the ball out into that? Can he throw into space? Can he throw the anticipation? It's everything for these guys. And like, it's just that's what we have to find with the next quarterback for the Giants, in addition to the physical skill set.
I agree, man. So now here is the long touchdown to CeeDee Lamb, 1st and 10, 9:25 in the second quarter. Look, the Giants are not scared to have Deontay Banks line up and jam boundary side CeeDee Lamb here. It's a 2x2 set with Jake Ferguson attached to the line of scrimmage, and Banks goes for the jam, and you can see CeeDee just overpowers him to the outside. See him win with his hands on the jam, and you can also follow Deontay Banks' hands. His feet don't really come with him, so he's reaching. It gets Deontay Banks off bounds. So from a technical standpoint, Banks is already in a bad position, not just because he lost, but he's losing bad enough to get his technique off kilter. And then Lamb just powers through. And at this point, Banks is completely stacked, and the safety is finally starting to come over. And I'm not saying that because Tyler Nubin did anything wrong. It's more Banks just getting cooked at the line of scrimmage. You could see, dude, there's 2 eligible receivers to the other side just running mirrored curls. Tyler Nubin is still on the hash, on the boundary hash. So they're keeping in mind that we don't really want Deontay Banks to handle this assignment all by himself. We'll have that safety over the top. Safety's a little late to get there. And then there's that inside throw you were talking about, because Dak, I think, processed that he's going to have this if he puts the football right there. And then Lamb runs right underneath it, and Nubin isn't in position to make a tackle. So that's just a bad rep by Banks going up against one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Yeah, bad rep by Nubin too, in my opinion. I just don't like this angle at all that he takes to the football. But it's a tough assignment for him, obviously, as we discussed. And it's another example, if you roll it back, of a wasted player by the Giants playing, 11 on 10 football here with the nickel blitz that just has no impact at all on this play.
No, it doesn't.
Pick up too.
It's a good blitz.
Even so, he's getting the ball out before that even matters, because he's that, like, maybe not.
No, I don't think. Well, if Deuce Vaughn didn't pick this up,
maybe not.
No, I don't. I think he gets clobbered, but that would just be a front side blitz. He would be able to probably see it and have another answer for it. But when the Giants blitz, hey man, I appreciate that Shane Bowen is trying to dial up these blitzes and trying to get after, even though he didn't do it that often. But it just seemed like every time they tried it, it didn't work. Like Dak Prescott was just on it.
Yep.
Fortunately. Here we have 2nd and 1. This is just a short pass to Ferguson. If you look at the bot or the top of your screen, you have a switch release where Keontae Turpin is running wide open. Yeah. Because that's Duke Shelley who's assuming that curl flat, and Deontay Banks. And the switch release, it gets some kind of mix up. I don't know if the safety to that side was supposed to take this, and maybe because like at this point, the safety is directly over top Jake Ferguson. Football is not out. It doesn't look like Dak Prescott's even ready to throw the football at this moment. And Turpin is wide open. And this is a touchdown if Dak Prescott sees it and gets rid of the football, because there's some sort of coverage mix up or somebody just wasn't in position. I'm probably going to default and say it's Duke Shelley. I honestly can't. I don't know for a fact if it was a miscommunication, but Banks is put into this just terrible situation where he has to close down on Turpin, and or maybe it was the safety too. Again, not sure. And I'm trying to make out who that safety is. I think it might be Nubin. No, it's Jason Pinnock.
That's Pinnock, yeah.
But I don't know who's at fault there, but it could have been a huge play. But Prescott just took the 5 yards and the conversion to Ferguson. And now we have the Kayvon sack. Just wanted to give that one. I'm going to end with this. Kayvon Thibodeaux sack, baby. This is a huge play.
Points off the board.
This is a huge play because it led to a punt. This is a 1st and 10 with 38 seconds left around midfield. Kayvon Thibodeaux, he just gives a little hezzy to the outside. Tyler Guyton opens up a little bit too much, and then he lands an inside rip right into the pocket. Thibodeaux, look, man, he doesn't use this too frequently, and I don't think it's all that successful all the time. But there was 2 sacks that he was able to earn against Seattle last year with the same move, right? I think it was against like Jake Curran or like it was an offensive tackle that's typically not a starter. So at least he's winning in other ways and just efficient hands at the top of the arc and trying to bend through contact, right? But that's a big play by Dak Prescott. Those are all the plays, though.
Yep. So let's break down a few of our superlatives from the game, Nick. I want to hear your unheralded player of the game.
Yeah, my unheralded player is Nick McLoud. Look, Nick McLoud was hurt the last few weeks. The Giants desperately need secondary help. Andrew Phillips is a very equipped and capable run defender, and he's been doing really well in coverage. I think Nick McLoud stepped in and played 37 snaps. He was credited with 2 missed tackles. One of them was a miss, but he boxed a guy inside. The other one, it was one of those missed tackles where he was held, I think, and I don't know if it was called, and then he forced the guy back inside, and he was tackled by a defender who was right there. So maybe I'm making excuses for him, but I think overall what he was able to contribute to the team deserves some praise.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's a good answer. For the sake of picking somebody else, I had 2 guys I was narrowing it down to. I'll go with the other one. It's Micah McFadden for me. Look, Mike McFadden has been quietly putting together a pretty strong season for the Giants on tape, at least. Obviously, it's not all showing up with sacks or things like that in the box score. But I feel like every game I watch Mike McFadden, he's much better in this system than I was thinking he might be, just because maybe I was like, oh, we drafted him to fit the wing system. And so I thought he had another good game. To me, I felt like from watching this tape, 41 and 44 were all over everything all the time in this game. So those were the 2 guys that I kind of narrowed down. And so for highest effort player, I'm actually going with McFadden as well, going with him for both of these categories. To me, I like a case could be made. He's probably not going to get it, but a case could be made. He was the best player on the defense in this game.
Yeah, I think so as well. I have Micah McFadden as the highest effort player. Right now, Micah McFadden, now he's only played in 3 games, but we're 4 games into the season for the Giants. Micah McFadden is the highest graded New York Giants defender.
Oh, from Pro Football Focus, yeah.
From Pro Football Focus, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is Micah McFadden a better football player than Dexter Lawrence? Yeah, I don't think so. But it does speak to his development, because just last year, around this time, is when we started being like, yo, Micah McFadden's not that bad. He was missing a ton of tackles in that Arizona game.
Yeah.
He was missing a ton of tackles. He only has 3 missed tackles right now. He's been more sure. I think he brings a level of physicality that I love. There was this one play where it was a halfback toss. Dowdle was trying to get to the outside, and they were trying to crack block Micah McFadden, like a wide receiver was coming and taking him as the pursuing defender, and he drove the wide receiver almost into Dowdle. So like he's a tough SOB, Micah McFadden, and I think the Giants actually finally have 2 above average to good linebackers on this team.
Yeah,
2 years ago when they were in the playoffs, they didn't have any. It was like
Anybody,
Kay Crowder and Jalen Smith. So at least
they didn't have to use a lot of draft capital, and they've rebuilt it to a point where it's at least competent at this point between those 2 players. I also thought, just a quick side note, I thought the Giants did a good job of adjusting to and not getting fooled by the CeeDee Lamb runs. Like they gave up the big one in the first play, and then they took the next 2 away, including one big stop in the red zone. So I did feel like the defense was pretty locked in to what they wanted to do in this game. Obviously, it wasn't the best result, but it's so hard for me to watch this game on tape on both sides and put anything on the defense. To me, this was like an all offensive blame kind of loss. But best player overall for you on film?
I have Kayvon Thibodeaux. I don't feel great about it, and I don't know why I don't feel great about it, because he did have a solid game. I don't think it was perfect, but I just think there were like a lot of the players that we need to step up on the Giants didn't in this game. Like that includes like Dexter. And then like people are like, oh, where was Dexter Lawrence? It's not that Dex I feel like played poorly. It's just Dallas had 4 hands on him the entire
time.
game.
Double team.
4 hands on him.
Yeah.
An armpit. A wrist, because he was being held on almost like every single play, it seemed like, too. He was throwing Cooper Beebe around on the line of scrimmage. And this isn't even an indictment on Cooper Beebe. I thought Cooper Beebe played well. It's just Dexter Lawrence is so good. And then Zach Martin would be right there, and Zach Martin would like hold him on some of these plays and not get called because he's square to him. But at the same time, you have your arm like wrapped around Dexter Lawrence. Like you got to call that. And it was the same thing in Cleveland, too. And I'm not trying to be like the blame the ref guy. Like, I hate that kind of shit. But Dexter Lawrence was held a lot against Cleveland. I don't think he drew 1 holding penalty that entire game. He had 2 sacks.
Good point.
And he had 8 or 9 pressures. So I don't know. He's way too good to not get the benefit of some of these calls when they're
That
going
happens
all
a
out.
lot, I feel like, for the interior defensive lineman. I'm reminded of like a clip from the Giants Super Bowl era where Vince Wilfork, the Giants got called for a hold on a big Brandon Jacobs run for like 10 yards, and it was a bad call. Like the Giants didn't hold,
It was
and
an
Vince
Ahmad
Wilfork,
Bradshaw run.
yeah, or Bradshaw, not Jacobs, and
Yeah.
Vince Wilfork got caught on tape being like, mic'd up, being like, no, that wasn't a hold, but they hold me so much that I don't care. I'll take that one, like kind of thing. And I think that happens a lot. These interior defensive linemen, these bigger guys. How about so best player overall for me? I was between Kayvon because of the impact he made on that sack before the half and a few of those pass rushes in the red zone, or McFadden. I'll go with Kayvon as well. Player you expected to see more from.
Brian Burns, and I also put Deontay Banks too.
Yeah.
So I don't know which. I did this to you last week too, and we're gonna do it again. Do you agree with me for choosing both, and which one would you choose out of those two, and then give me yours?
They're both the guys I have on this too. I don't know how we could put anybody else on here. Kayvon had a pretty good game. Dexter, I think, is just a situation getting double teamed. Okereke is the only other one I would put in conversation here. This was not one of my favorite Okereke games on tape. Not just that play in the red zone. I just felt like there were some other plays in run support that I'm used to seeing him a little quicker to diagnose. But I'll go with Burns just because I expect more out of Burns than Banks in general.
Yeah. So do I, and the contract would suggest as much.
Sure.
So Burns was facing double teams, but so was Kayvon. And it's like they were both facing an equal amount of attention when it comes to running backs and chips. And those condensed sets, another reason why the Giants are seeing, well, there's a lot of teams employing condensed sets, but one of the reasons why teams employ these condensed sets too is to hinder the quick burst of a lot of these edge rushers who align wide of the offensive tackle. They don't even have to contact them sometimes. It's just their presence. You can see like Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeaux have to keep their peripheral vision on him, or else you end up going viral on Twitter because Myles Garrett gets taken out by Dearness Johnson or something,
Yep. All right. Pass rush grade 1 through 10.
Pass rush grade 1 through 10. I had a 3.1. I didn't really know exactly how to judge this because Dak had the football out of his hands so quickly. I thought Kayvon did well. Giants, I think, only had like 9 pressures, though. 5 of them were from Kayvon Thibodeaux. 2 were from Brian Burns. And then I think Dex had 1. And then Isaiah Simmons had 1. So the Giants really weren't getting any pressure. A lot of it was game plan dependent, but still, it wasn't great. So 3.1.
I went 4.8 just because, again, like I think you've said it best. A lot of this was just quick game, but I did feel like on the times when they had an opportunity to rush the passer, Kayvon had a few really big rushes. Even Burns had one that I thought that I liked, and obviously Dex wasn't a huge game, so not great, about average, just below it. Run defense 1 through 10.
Run defense, I had a 7.2, so I think you're probably going to be a little bit lower. I thought they played good team run defense early. It strayed away a little bit down the stretch of the game when Dowdle was getting like 6 yards here. Like Zeke had a 10-yard run, but I think on a lot of those, Dex wasn't there and 98 was there. And whenever DJ, and like again, I don't want to make this podcast that we're just going to shit on Cordell Flott and DJ Davidson, but whenever DJ Davidson's out there, he's just getting uprooted. He can't handle those double teams. There was a play where Zeke Elliott looked like 2015 Zeke Elliott because he just like runs right into the line of scrimmage and drives DJ Davidson like 3 yards back, and DJ Davidson like hugs him and falls on his back. It's like, yeah, I made the tackle. It's like, but you could have stuffed them at the line of scrimmage. It should have been a stop, not a 10-yard gain. Like, what are we doing here? So
it's frustrating.
So like, yeah, for that reason, it can't be that great, but there were aspects of this game where I felt like Nick McLoud as that apex filled really quickly. The safeties were coming down. They were making plays at the line of scrimmage. Tyler Nubin had a couple like that. Jason Pinnock had a couple like that. So maybe I'm a little high with mine, but yeah, this was such a unique and weird and strange game. The Giants outpossessed them. The Giants defense didn't really play all that poorly, but somehow the Giants only got 5 field goals, end up losing the game. It's just like, oh God, of course that's how we lose. Of course.
Yeah. I had 4.9. It's just too many of those like 6-7 yard gains from a team that has been struggling to run the football with their new group up front on the offensive line and with these 2 backs. And I just don't have much respect personally for Dowdle and Zeke as running back. So I thought like this should have been a game where we looked a little bit more like last week against Cleveland, where we totally shut it down. But it is what it is.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, it is what it is on that front. All right, that's all we have for today. Big Blue Banter podcast. Please keep it locked and loaded. We are entering that stage that Giants fans and we enter seemingly every year, which is what's happening next with this franchise. So we're going to start to do some forward-looking content. I don't think there's any other option. So mailbag coming this week with a lot of forward-looking stuff. I'll send a tweet out, but here's what you can do now to get your questions in. Go to the YouTube community page. I think it's the main page on our YouTube, and you could put your questions in there and we'll take from there first. Otherwise, have a great rest of your weekend and we'll talk to you soon.